Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. As today we got another episode of reviewing NHL teams offseason so far. As today we got the Chicago Blackhawks ahead of us as they just had an insane offseason, trading away two of their big players in both DeBrincat and Doc to pick up some future picks, picks for this upcoming draft. They also, signed some depth players, but this team honestly is competing hard for Bedard, and honestly they have a good chance of doing that with a tandem of Mrazek and Stalock, and not a very good looking team to say the least. But before we get into this, I'd like to just say, if you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. It'll be very much appreciated there, guys. So let's jump into this offseason here with the Blackhawks as, they had a pretty horrible season this past year with the stuff that happened with Kyle Beach, which was absolutely fucking horrendous on how they hid this up. And I think with Kyle Davidson, and me and Perlo have talked about this before, and if you watch our streams talking about the Chicago Blackhawks, they wanted a culture shift. And that's why they made the deals like what we're going to be talking about with DeBrincat, and why they looked like they got fleeced is most likely because they're trying to change the culture there in Chicago, and they really do need to, because what happened years ago was, a disaster. It's absolutely unbelievable that, the coaches and the management decide to hit it up, hide it instead of actually dealing with it. And that's a problem with a lot of sports right now. I really don't want to divulge into it too much because it's a big topic that you could talk on for, hours on end, on how horrible and disgusting that some sports and some of the shit that happens behind the scenes. I've seen it before. I've seen hazing, and it is absolutely horrendous. Now, I've never seen the type of hazing that Kyle Beach had to deal with, or what some other players have had to deal with. It's disgusting what you have to deal with, and it's horrendous. And it's not just hockey, it's football, it's tons of other sports as well that's had to deal with these hazings and sexual assaults and many other things, which is absolutely disgusting, and is the reason why I give tips to Rick Westhead, who's been doing a great job on covering everything. And honestly, if you're looking to keep up to date on everything that's going on with these disgusting accusations, or, with what's happening with Team Canada and all that, and their whole association, which is just a dumpster fire as well, I really would recommend going and checking out some of his articles. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Chicago Blackhawks offseason. So let's get into talking about more about that and the deals that Kyle Davidson made. So we'll talk about the very first deal where they trade away Alex DeBrincat, who was practically on a point per game pace, for a first-round pick, which ended up being a really good prospect in Kevin Korninski, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick for 2024, as there is an ambulance driving right by my place. But I don't know. This deal I'm not a big fan of. I wasn't a big fan of both of the Chicago Blackhawks move because I don't think they got enough value out of these deals, to be quite honest with you. DeBrincat's a point-per-game player and also is a 40-goal scorer and should be well worth more than what the Chicago Blackhawks got. But honestly, from seeing what, the market was this year, the market wasn't increasingly big for wingers and goal scoring wingers at that. You look at Bjorkstrand and what he got next to nothing compared to what DeBrincat got. So they did get a top 10 pick, which is a big thing here for the Blackhawks because they didn't have any top 10 picks, and they were probably trying to bet for one. And honestly, that was probably the only team that was really looking to get a player like DeBrincat on the team and was willing to give up a top 10 pick. And a lot of the other teams, like Ottawa, wasn't going to be willing to give up another first-round pick. That's just the bottom line. They probably weren't going to give up another first-round pick, and that's just the thing about it. And also the Montreal Canadiens, they probably weren't going to give up any extra picks as well. They were probably only going to give up that first and that third because they were not willing to trade away any of their other future picks that they have in the next few years, because they're also a rebuilding team as well, picking up Kirby Dach in this situation. And honestly, the Kirby Dach move is all right because he hasn't been performing too great in the NHL, so his trade value was a bit lower. He still has an amazing future and amazing potential, which is the reason why they should have got a little bit more out of the deal. But once again, not amazing trade values for, DeBrincat should have been amazing trade value, but a guy like Kirby Dach, who should have still had pretty good trade value as well, was not amazing. But only a first and third out of the deal. I think they took a really big L on the DeBrincat deal, but you get a really, really, really good prospect from what I've been hearing in Kevin Korninski, which we're going to be talking about here in just a few minutes. And then they also traded a second-round pick to get Peter Mrazek, just a cap dump, but they picked up a first-round pick out of the deal as well, which was another big thing because now they have three first round draft picks in this draft, and I gotta say they did really, really good in this draft. Kevin Korninski, an amazing offensive defenseman who has a really, really good future ahead of him. He has really good star probabilities, and honestly, this could be a guy that could be like a Alex DeBrincat, but, picked up way higher. In the WHL, he had 65 points in 67 games. He's an elite level offensive defenseman and somebody that I think the Blackhawks fans should be very excited for. He's a fan of the Blackhawks as well, so you have a fan of the team that will probably stay with the team for the rest of his career and could be a really dangerous offensive defenseman. His defensive abilities is something worth lacking. Definitely not amazing in that department, but still a very good defenseman at that selection. Frank Nazar, also an amazing two-way guy who puts up a lot of points. He's a speedy guy. He just brings a really versatile game to the Chicago Blackhawks and brings a lot of speed. And that's what you're seeing out of the two first picks from the Chicago Blackhawks is two guys who bring a lot of speed into the Chicago Blackhawks prospect system. They don't have a lot of that. They don't really have a lot of prospects in general. So drafting those two guys at those selections are absolutely amazing and are really good picks for the Blackhawks. And then Sam Rinzel as well, a really good two-way defenseman, right-handed guy, I think is a perfect selection at this area and is a really good, prospect for the Chicago Blackhawks. So a really good top four. Kevin Korninski, you could be seeing him as a top 2, top 4 defenseman. Nazar, probably a 3C, 2C kind of guy. And then Rinzel, a top 4 projected type of guy. So you have, 3 guys that could be pivotal parts of your team going forward for the future. So you could kind of see the deals with that DeBrincat and Kirby Dach deal as dubs as well. But that's the thing, you're going to have to see how well these guys pan out to be. You still probably could have got a lot more out of the deal in the DeBrincat one in general, but they did bounce back, I feel, with the draft because they did really well. They did have a really good draft. Now, the rest of the picks, I'm not too sure about. That's going to be left up to the future. Lewinsky has, he's really cocky. He said that he feels like he's one of the best, versatile players in the draft, and he feels like he could be a guy that could be like a Yanni Gourde, bring it every night, could play up on the top line, could play on the third line, could play basically anywhere. So we'll have to see if he can keep up to his word, but a really good prospect there for the Blackhawks. Overall, decent draft here as we'll move on to the signings, which they didn't make a whole lot, but they did get Max Domi and Andreas Athanasiou. I don't mind these signings. Max Domi, he's, wasn't amazing. He played a lot less minutes this past year. Was playing more like third line, only 13 minutes per game. But as an offensive guy, he's going to produce a lot of points for the team. And that's especially what you're going to want, especially when you look at the depth chart here for the Blackhawks. They need some second line guys to bring in a little bit of offense so they're not so putrid, especially when they most likely will be trading away the two big guys in Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane potentially this season, and most likely these guys will be going. I'm not too sure. We've been hearing mixed rumors on whether or not they want to be staying or not, but they're not happy with the way that this team has taken its direction, and you could obviously see that. So I think those guys will probably most likely be traded sooner or later. But Max Domi and Andreas Athanasiou are two guys that you're bringing into the team who, generate some decent offense. Athanasiou hasn't been able to stay healthy. That's been the big issue with Athanasiou. He's really hasn't been able to play a full season, but is a guy that produces a decent amount of offense and could be a guy that you could fetch for a few picks at the draft. And that's the same with Domi, right? You could trade those guys for some picks. You only sign them for a year. You could trade them off and, pick up some guys that could potentially help you for the future. Caleb Jones, I like the sign as well. I was always a big fan of Caleb Jones when he was in the Edmonton Oilers, so nice signing there. Blackwell and Lafferty brings in some extra depth. But honestly, nothing too much to talk about there. Like I was saying, they didn't do a whole lot for signings. And yeah, this is their team. As you guys could see, they got a putrid team. You look at their depth with Kara, Lafferty, and Blackwell. That's not very good at all. Their defensive core is not looking great. I mean, McCabe and Murphy are pretty nice, but you could probably trade these guys away and get some decent assets, which I think you're going to be seeing those guys getting traded away as well. But you look at the goalie tandem of Mrazek and Stalock, even if you do have a half-decent defense score, and even then, the Blackhawks weren't that great defensively last year anyways, and most likely you're going to see them become even worse this upcoming season, especially when you look at the offense. Toews, he's okay defensively. Kane can't play defense. Athanasiou can't play defense. Domi, Johnson, Lafferty's okay, Kara's okay, Blackwell's okay. Like, none of the offensive guys play very well defensively, and same with the defensive core. You only really got McCabe and Murphy. Seth Jones played all right, but he's more of your offensive guy than anything. this team is going to be really bad this upcoming season. It is going to be really, really, really bad. And honestly, I'm excited to see what the Blackhawks will do this upcoming season. And sorry, Blackhawks fans, but this team is going to be putrid. Probably for a bit, to say the least. Probably for a bit, especially when you look at the prospect system and you really don't see a whole lot of standout players, and their prospect system is really not that deep. It really isn't. It's not that deep of a core, so it's going to be a tough few seasons here for the Blackhawks fans, but honestly, it's a pretty good start to the rebuild. I give it a B. You know, a lot of the moves that they did was okay. You know, it evened out with the losses. They had a good draft, but they lost out on the deals on DeBrincat and Dog. They got some decent signings, which they could pick up some assets, which I also see that as an even W as well. So honestly, I'm going with a B. You could even go with a B+. It could go up there as well, but honestly, I'm going to give the Blackhawks a B for this past offseason. Tell me guys in the comment section below what you guys thought of the Blackhawks offseason in the comment section below. But for right now, guys, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigos.